Welcome to Bible Study with Fred. We're in Job chapter 24 this morning, and where Job is replying to his friends. They've accused him. You follow along, you know what's going on. And Job has some very important things to say, and I want to comment on what he says. If you want to follow along with my comments, you can purchase them on Amazon.com in paperback or Kindle form, or you can just follow me here. Just open your Bible to Job chapter 24, verse 1. We're going to read 1 to 12 first. Why, seeing times not hidden from the Almighty, do they that know him not see his day? Some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks and feed thereof. They drive away the ass of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. Behold, as wild asses in the desert go they forth to their work, rising betimes for a prey. The wilderness yields food for them, for their children. They reap every one his corn in the field, and they gather the vintage of the wicked. They cause the naked to lodge without clothing, and they that showers of the mountains and embrace the rock for one of the fatherless from the breast, and take a pledge of the poor. They cause him to go naked without clothing. They take away the sheaf from the hungry, which make oil within their walls, and tread their wine presses, and suffer thirst. Men groan from out of the city, and the soul of the wounded cry out. Yet God left not folly to them. Job expands on his former argument that the wicked are not always punished in this life, and we often don't see what happens to them. It's incorrect to say that good always wins and bad is always punished. People are aware of God's standards and judgment and still continue to do evil. Job lists some things that were issues in the world of herds and flocks and land. Deuteronomy 19:14. Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land that the Lord thy God giveth thee to possess it. Proverbs 23:10. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. Taking something that was put up as a guarantee against a loan from a poor person, if it was his or her livelihood or needed for their survival, was wrong by God's standard. Deuteronomy 4:6, and then verse 12 and 13. No man shall take the nether or the upper millstone to pledge, for he taketh a man's life to pledge. Verse 12, and if the man be poor, thou shalt not sleep with his pledge. In any case, thou shalt deliver him the pledge again when the sun goeth down, that he may sleep in his own raiment, and bless thee, and it shall be righteousness unto thee before the Lord thy God. The point is of this passage in Job that wicked men do all of these wicked things and often get away with it, or seem as God says, or Job says, God layeth not folly to them. It is naive and foolish to have an old-fashioned Saturday morning children's television show view of the world and thinking that the good always win and the bad are always punished in this world. And let's go to verse 13, and we'll read 13 to 17. They are of those that rebel against the light. They know not the ways thereof, nor abide in the paths thereof. The murderer rising from the light killeth the poor and needy, and in the night is as a thief. The eye also of the adulterer waiteth for the twilight, saying, no eye shall see me, and disguises his face. In the dark they dig through houses which they had marked for themselves in the daytime. They know not the light, for the morning is to them even as a shadow of death. If one know them, they are in the terrors of the shadow of death. No further explanation is needed of this passage from a literal standpoint. Many verses throughout the Bible speak of how the wicked lay in wait for the poor. The wicked person often makes his fortune by deceiving and manipulating the poor. I just think about the financial crisis, 2007, 2008, partly caused by a lot of predatory lending practices from banks that have been unleashed by the federal government before that, predatory on the poor and people who weren't informed, who didn't know what was going on or understand. People, ridiculous appraisals, ridiculous mortgages into people who were encouraged to use their houses as cash cows. And then these wealthy people made tremendous profits on these poor people who then lost their houses, lost their jobs. Many committed suicide. Many were destroyed, and the ones that survived took years to come out. So this isn't stopped. This is still going on. One characteristic was, well, sometimes the wicked person commits outright murder. One characteristic of both the murderer and the adulterer is believing that under the cover of darkness, no one sees them. Psalm 10 is a plea for judgment against these people. Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesses the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above, out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. He has said in his heart, I shall not be moved. I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. Excuse me. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doth catch the poor. When he draweth them into his net, he croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. He hath said in his heart, God hath forgotten, he hideth his, he will never see it. Go to 18. Excuse me. He is swift, their portion is cursed. He buildeth not the way of the vineyards. Consume the snow water, so doth the grave those which have sinned. The womb shall forget him, the worm shall feed sweetly on him. He shall be no more remembered, and wickedness shall be broken as a tree. He evil entreateth the barren that beareth not, and doeth not good to the widow. He draweth also the mighty with his power. He riseth up, and no man is sure of life. Though it be given him to be in safety, wherein he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other, and cut off as the tops of the ears of corn. If it be not so now, who will make me a liar or make my speech nothing worth? Like a flood, the wicked descend on their prey. They hold in contempt the honest labor of the vineyard. They do no one any good. Even the mighty are drawn over into his influence, and no one's life is certain or safe when he is about. Here, Job remembers the eventual demise of the wicked who prosper for a short time, but then descend into the grave. Job knows the things that his friends have been telling him and does not deny that, even though the wicked seem to prosper for a time, they will all come to the same fate. If Job is not speaking the truth, he dares his friends to argue with him. We have in these verses many interesting things to note about the mark of a wicked man. He cares nothing for honest labor and is always seeking an advantage over others, which is something forbidden to the Christian. He does no good to those who are lacking, as the Christian is called to do good. No one is safe in his presence, which is the opposite of how people should feel around a Christian. The Christian does not care to influence the powerful, but by the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's been said that life on earth is about power. We are fascinated by the boxer with the most knockouts, the best baseball player with the most home runs, who is the wealthiest, the most influential, the power broker of politics, the nation with the mightiest army. In our personal relationships, there often appears to be a struggle for who gets the most attention, who gets what they want, who's in charge. Wicked people want to control others. They want to be in charge. They have a pathological need, a lust to tell others what to do and how to do it. They can disguise their wickedness by saying that it's for a good cause, even for Christ. They will exploit and manipulate those around them. The Christian does not seek to control others. He seeks to be an example, a testimony of faith and a submission to God's will. He leads by example and draws others to Christ. He does not drive them like a slave overseer with a whip. Here, Job is expressing what we all know, that wicked people do harm with seeming impunity and go to their graves without fear. Often their wickedness is forgotten after them, and we remember them as being good, even as philanthropists or godly men and women. History is replete with great men who were incredibly evil men, who abused the weak and the poor, which God repeatedly says he hates, and yet are called into public memory as great political leaders, generous philanthropists, brilliant generals, captains of industry, captivating thinkers, and men of renown. These individuals are burning in a sinner's hell now for their rejection of Christ and worship of self, but we remember them as great ones. They exist at every level of humanity, on every layer of success, in every government office building, every school, every church, and every family. And they seem to get away with their wickedness. A famous quote made about leadership in history was, quote, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence, not authority. Still more, when you superadd the tendency or the certainty of corruption by authority. There is no worse heresy than that the office sanctifies the holder of it. And that was from John Dalberg Acton, Lord Acton, in a letter to Bishop Mandel Creighton in 1887. So Job's going to go on after he's interrupted. He's going to be interrupted now by Bildad the Shuhite. But he's going to go on to lift up his own righteousness and to proclaim that he is not one of the wicked, but just a just man, sorely treated. So we'll start with chapter 25 next with Bildad the Shuhite. I hope you'll pray about this, read your Bible, cross-reference it. Pray that you're using the King James Bible, the Authorized Version, and look forward to talking to you again.